Hello and welcome to Next Portable Console. That's also known as NPC. It's the show about the games we take with us. My name is Brendon Bigley, and I'm here, as always, with John Voorhees. Hello, John.
Hello, Brendon. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's freezing here in New York, and I'm wearing many layers, and I have to have the window open because also my heat is compensating too much. So it's too hot and too cold simultaneously. You'd love to see it. That's New York for you. I'm also here with Federico Vitici. Hello, Federico.
Hello, Brendon. That's an interesting temperature situation you got going on.
It's a conundrum.
You're both cold and hot at the same time.
Yes.
You're a man of multitudes.
I contain multitudes. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Interesting. Just before we get into the show, we got some news to cover. We got some follow-up. We got some topics. I just wanted to quickly mention that we released at MacStories some skins for the Delta emulator, and you may be wondering, why is MacStories releasing Delta skins? We named Delta, the excellent Delta emulator for iPhone and iPad, the app of the year for the annual MacStories Selects Awards that we do. We've been doing them for 7 years. Every year there's an app of the year. This time it's Delta, and we thought it would be pretty fun to celebrate this moment by teaming up with one of the best designers for Delta skins just around right now, Sean Fletcher. And so we worked with Sean to create these MacStories themed skins for Delta. You can get them at $3. We have a Gumroad page now where you can just go there and buy them. They're iPhone only at the moment, portrait and landscape, and they come in 3 versions. One that is sort of reminiscent, of course, of the colors of MacStories, but also inspired by the old gold and red Famicom colors. And there's 2 clear, transparent variations. So I just wanted to mention this. I think NPC listeners will get a kick out of those because they look really, really nice, especially if you're using your iPhone without an external controller. I've been playing Nintendo DS games like Somabringer in Delta. Yes, shout out to Brendon. I've been playing that with the gold skin on my iPhone. It looks excellent. So yeah, there's going to be a link in the show notes. You can just find it there and click on the link and pay $3 because it's, they look nice and they're cheap. So why not?
They're beautiful. They're beautiful skins. I've been playing Dragon Quest VI on there on my commutes a little bit when I'm not using another handheld that we'll be talking about later. But they're beautiful, beautiful skins.
Okay. Now, I see some follow-up, John. Am I seeing this follow-up correctly? We're talking about Jason Snell in follow-up?
We are. We are. We're talking about the Upgrade
friend of
podcast.
The show. Okay.
Yes. On Relay FM, they have a subscription version, Upgrade Plus, and during their Pro segment, Jason was talking about some hardware that he bought recently. A couple of different things. One of them was a Miyoo Mini Plus that was based, and his choice was based on none other than Brendon's article, where you have this article called "The 2 Best Entry-Level Handhelds Are on Sale," which was a couple of weeks ago. There were pretty deep discounts on both the Miyoo Mini Plus and on the Anbernic RG34XX SP. And Jason decided between those two, he preferred the vertical, the vertical form factor, and he's now doing his own emulation thing. So I thought that was kind of nice. Nice to see someone joining the crowd in the retro handheld space.
Welcome, Jason. I'm so sorry for what's going to happen later in this episode. I'm just going to apologize in advance. So many things have changed in the 1 month since writing that.
We are now preemptively apologizing for what's going to happen.
There are multiple things are going to be upsetting, I think.
Yeah. Welcome to our world, Jason. This is like every month it changes.
Yeah. We are going to talk about...
But for real, I'm excited. The Miyoo Mini is great. It's a wonderful device. So
it really is still one of the best. I think it really is a good entry-level place. I thought that was a great article, Brendon, because it does, there's so many choices right now, and those two devices in particular, I think, really are great places to start with retro emulation.
Yeah, I'll just shout out the other one that I listed there is the Anbernic RG35XX SP. Those I think were the 2 best devices, the ones that I'd recommend to the most people. I'll also say, at risk of spoiling it for some people in case they might be listening, but I got some more SPs as gifts recently for people that I've been setting up, and they've changed the hardware actually since the launch version of the SP.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they feel a little bit better. They feel a little bit sturdier.
Man, am I gonna have to buy a new SP?
That's what I'm worried about because I like my SP enough. I don't think I'm going to do it, but they do like feel like honestly markedly different than the one that I bought at launch.
Just kind of what, like the build quality or what?
The build quality a little bit. The buttons feel better. They don't like shake and rattle as much as they did before.
And they probably don't catch on fire anymore.
I would assume, but I don't want to risk it. I'm still charging with the worst charger I have in my arsenal.
The worst cable for your favorite handheld. Just a quick question before we move on. Remind me again, because I'm in the process. So I need to backtrack here. There's multiple layers of Brendon-ness going on. Brendon wrote...
Aren't there always?
Brendon wrote about this ROM hack for Pokemon Emerald called Pokemon Emerald Legacy.
Yes,
right.
From the same creator of Yellow Legacy and Crystal Legacy. Both ROM hacks that I've been keeping an eye on. But I didn't want to play the first gen or the second gen. Emerald is just the right sweet spot for me in terms of like an old gen that I want to revisit. So I started thinking, I want to set it up this weekend. I have my own ROM of Pokemon Emerald that I can patch and everything. But I was thinking, should I play on the RG Cube, which I got here, or should I try the SP again? And my question is, remind me again.
Yeah.
You're running Miyoo OS on the SP.
Yes.
Does Miyoo OS support sleep and resume automatically? Like you close the lid.
Yes. Yeah, there are some settings. I'll send you some settings.
Okay.
But there are a couple settings where if you turn them on, when you close the lid, it'll sleep for like 3 seconds, automatically save, shut the game down, and when you open it up, it'll jump right back into the game where that save left off.
And can that sort of hibernation state last for days even?
No, it'll turn itself off, so it'll automatically save and then turn the console off to preserve battery. Because Android devices like this are generally, Linux-based devices like this are generally pretty bad at like sleep. Technically. So to get around that, they just kind of like leave it on for a couple seconds. You can actually leave it on for like 5 to 10 minutes if you want to. But I think the lowest one is like 1 second or 3 seconds. So it'll just like kind of hang out for a couple seconds, automatically save, close, and then you're good to go.
Well, I guess I know what I'm doing this weekend. Okay. Thank you. So we have, before we talk about some more, obviously we have Anbernic stuff to talk about.
Of course we do.
Of course. I want to talk about a major announcement from Google from a few days ago. Android XR. Google basically just announced, they're calling this extended reality. They announced not only a partnership with Samsung. Samsung is basically making their own take on the Vision Pro. They're making a headset. This headset is based on this new Android XR platform. So Google is launching an ecosystem, an operating system for XR devices, glasses and headsets. And there's multiple companies that have already announced that they're gonna implement this operating system. So there's a couple of stories that we can link in the show notes. There's obviously this new headset from Samsung that people were able to try. There are details and demos in terms of how Android XR is gonna look like, how it's gonna work. It's very reminiscent of Vision OS, and I think you can tell that Google was very much inspired by Apple's work in terms of like the interface, the translucent gray elements, the way that top bars and sidebars are laid out. There are some new ideas that I think Google is exploring in terms of interface design. Like they have this carousel view where like you can scroll horizontally across multiple elements, like for example videos in a video streaming service. I think that looks very nice. But the big news is that we have multiple companies such as Sony and XREAL that have already announced that they are going to be launching and announcing, supposedly at CES even, they're going to be showing off new glasses and headsets based on Android XR. I think this is a pretty big deal because this is Google entering this space and basically saying, Meta, you said you're going to have your glasses, your XR glasses ready in 5 years probably. We're going to launch this platform next year. I have so many questions in terms of like, what kind of hardware are we going to see? Are we going to see headsets? like Samsung did, which is basically a lighter version of the Vision Pro? Are there going to be glasses, like actual see-through glasses? How bulky are they going to be? I have so many questions, but at the same time, I think it's very exciting that Google is doing this and that they recognize the opportunity for, just like they did with Android, establishing an ecosystem for these companies to build on top of.
Right. And I think that the two things that they're really centering this around are Gemini for interacting with these devices and the Google Play Store, because they say that, they'll have Google Play Store apps and games available without a lot of work by third-party developers, which would be impressive if it works out that way. I think this is really interesting. The headset reminded me of kind of a cross between the Vision Pro and the Meta Quest.
Yeah.
Although it definitely looks more like the Vision Pro than the Meta Quest, but in terms of just being lighter and some of the elements of it remind me of the Quest 2. But what I'm really excited about are the prospect of glasses, whether it's by XREAL or Sony. I mean, Sony obviously is making a lot of cameras for a lot of these smartphone manufacturers already. They have a lot of the components that
they're making the cameras, and they're making the micro OLED displays for all of these glasses. Like all of they're all using even the Vision Pro. They're all using Sony panels inside.
Yep. So the exciting times. I'm looking forward to seeing some of this stuff at CES.
I think you guys are going to see a bunch of this stuff at CES.
I think we picked a good year.
I think we picked a good year. I'm really, I'm excited about it. It's going to be interesting. But also, like, how much am I looking forward to the feeling of, like, alcohol sanitizer all over my face every time I try one on because I have to wipe it down in between each person?
Yes.
You're going to have to bring a lot of moisturizer.
You should bring a lot of moisturizer and a lot of sanitizer wipes with you, like packed plenty, because you're
doing like little mini showers in the middle of CES in the aisles
I'm just gonna run back to the room real quick. I just tried on the Samsung XR glasses.
I just think you're gonna be putting a lot of things on your faces in January. In January, it's gonna be exciting.
I think John, you and I first started interacting on the internet because of our mutual, like, just the most insane post possible about CES.
Probably that's one of my favorite things every year is what I call weird CES. Strange stuff.
I'm worried that we're not even going to cover any of the stuff that we're planning on covering because we're just going to be so gravitated towards the weirdest things we can possibly find.
Like the smart toilet or that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, remember the VR company that made these things you put over your mouth?
Yes.
They were like, so you could shout into them. I mean, there's all kinds of strange stuff. That company's still around making those.
Wow. Maybe we could try them.
Why?
And then have to shower.
It looks like a feed bag.
It does look like a feed bag. It's
Why?
so horrible.
No. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Do we want to talk about our friends at Anbernic and what they have done this time? And
oh God, what have they done this time?
They're doing a GBA. They're doing a Game Boy.
They're doing a GBA.
They're doing a Game Boy Advance.
GBA.
It's literally, I believe, it's literally the same shell, the same mold of a GBA, but thicker because they're doing more buttons. This is called the RG34XX. This is also the handheld number 12 from Anbernic this year. So it's I think we now understand Anbernic's strategy. 12 months, 12 devices. It finally makes sense. Well, I mean, when you think about it, it's still a pretty aggressive development pace. One device a month.
Yeah.
But still, I am oddly excited about this one. I love the GBA, just like I love the Nintendo DS. Like, those years were so formative for me, and I think for many of our listeners. And to have a modern version of the GBA that looks like the GBA, but has USB-C and a proper backlit display. Like, I got my modded GBAs that I got from Etsy a few years ago with like a backlit display, but I don't have USB-C. I don't have an easy way to set up emulators on it, because those are actual GBAs where I need to put in the cartridge. And so to have an Anbernic device that does that with emulation. I think it's very exciting. And I think it's interesting how Anbernic were able to add 2 more front-facing buttons, but making them the same color of the shell so that it doesn't take away from the overall original aesthetic of the GBA, which only had 2.
Yeah, I like that move a lot. I think that looks really cool. I'm not sure about the design though. I'm not sure I want a GBA that is shaped like a GBA anymore. I think I prefer the modern takes on these that have screens that, you know, pixel double or quadruple the GBA, but have a little bit more modern ergonomics and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I will say, as somebody who I have a GBA right here. I have a couple. Here you go.
Nice.
This is a nice one. This is a modded one from a friend of mine, Kyle Starr. Shout out.
Nice.
And he sent this over while we were doing our Game Boy Advance retrospective for Into the Aether. And what I found very quickly was I am an adult, and the GBA is not super built for adults. At least, you know, I just think my hands are too big for the GBA these days. It is a nice console. It is more ergonomic than I think most people remember, mainly because of all the like curves and stuff on the bottom. You know, the fact that it's not just a rectangle like the Anbernic 35XXH and stuff. But it does feel small, and like the D-pad in particular feels really small. And I'm just curious to see how close to the metal they got in terms of replicating the GBA, because if it feels exactly like this, then it's probably not a device I'm going to be buying. But I am really excited for other people. Like, it feels, the announcement of this felt so much like the SP, in that immediately you could tell this one has the juice and people are going to go nuts for it, and it's going to be widely supported and everyone's going to be really stoked about it. I imagine the Miyoo OS team will be porting Miyoo OS to it like pretty immediately, considering it's the same chip. It just feels like an obvious slam dunk. 2 notes about it that I think are fascinating. Number one, I like that they added a kind of like second shelf on the back for L2 and R2, which I actually think in a lot of ways will make it more ergonomic. That I think is going to be the differentiator there. And also, and this is more of a question, what do you think they're going to do next? Like, do you think that they're going to just like continue going down the line of other famous handhelds?
My theory is that 2025 is the year of, now we've seen the GBAs, okay?
Yeah.
It's time. Yeah. It's time for 2 things: the PSP and the DS.
Dude,
yeah, I think I could see the PSP, but what about the DS? Is going to be hard, I think, for a lot of these companies.
It's going to be hard, but it's obviously the next frontier, right? I mean,
it is. Yeah, it definitely is.
Who tried it? Who tried it before?
Retroid Flip.
We got the Retro Flip and Neo probably doing them. And
the Retroid Pocket Flip had one screen, right? So you know, it was a DS with one screen only on the top. And Neo did make that one. I forget what it was called, right. But it was huge. It was a huge device. It was
huge, and it wasn't really successful and super expensive.
Yeah. I think honestly the best move, if I were Anbernic, hello Anbernic, if you're listening, I wouldn't replicate the Nintendo DS. I would replicate the 2DS first and see if you can get that working, because the 2DS famously was one screen that had a piece of plastic that kind of divided the top and bottom halves. I feel like that's maybe a better starting point here, because from what I understand, a lot of these emulators, a lot of these DS emulators don't have native dual screen support like that, where they can project one image on one screen and one on the other. That's going to require like a lot of tinkering and a lot of operating system work, which as I outlined in a piece recently, a lot of these manufacturers aren't very interested in doing. They have their stock operating system and they're totally fine just releasing like a horrible user experience out of the box and just hoping that other people fix it. To create a DS style device, they will need to do the OS work and like help build emulators. And I can't imagine them doing that. So I feel like the 2DS design is their best way of kind of cheating that in some ways.
But a DS Lite, though, can you?
I mean, I would lose my mind if they did it. I would lose my mind. I would be all over it like immediately. That's honestly the system I play most on the SP these days is the DS. weirdly.
Really?
I didn't expect that for myself.
Oh yeah, because you're working on the list of games that you can play with one screen. Yes,
Exactly.
Right.
yes. Speaking of the SP, Brendon, what is going on with the Miyoo
Yeah, we have
Flip?
to go to our correspondent, our Flip
What's
correspondent.
going on with the Miyoo Flip? What's happening? What's happening?
Guys, it's happening. It's like actually coming at this point. So quick recap. If you're listening to
Okay.
this, I'm sure you know all this already. But Miyoo Flip first teased like a year and a half ago at this
Yes.
point. Sporadically, an account that is maybe tangentially but not actually related to Miyoo Official, called Miyoo Official, keeps posting. It's coming any minute now. It's coming at the end of this month, et cetera, et cetera. Just like building up hype for it. Very much a boy who cries wolf situation with the Miyoo Flip. Until it was like last month, maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, we got product images on their website. We started seeing images of it next to Anbernic's SP, next to the original Game Boy Advance SP. We saw images of the packaging. What is the case that's going to come in? What's the box that's going to come in? Those are the kinds of things that I would assume. I don't make these devices, but I would assume you don't really put together until you know exactly what the dimensions of the device are going to be, and can
Right.
therefore start to build the cases and stuff. It felt to me like it was time and it was coming soon. What I didn't expect was maybe they're trying to rush it out by the end of the year. Like maybe it's going to get announced any minute now, even by the time this episode's out, is kind of where I'm headed. Because the Miyoo Flip has now been sent out to a bunch of people. The developers of Onion OS, thank God, have them in hand already, pre-launch, which is nice. The idea of Onion OS on the Miyoo Flip is like kind of the dream for a lot of people. It's something I've been writing about on Wavelengths for like about a year at this point.
Right.
The developers of Moo OS also have one in hand and have been testing and excited about the idea of getting it on there. The developer of Spruce also. So Miyoo has kind of seeded it out to all of these OS developers, which I think is a smart move. I hope they're getting paid in some respect. I imagine not. But I think it's a really smart decision because when comparing the SP to the Miyoo Flip, even before holding the Flip, I think the thing that's going to really be the game changer is probably the operating system. Like if Onion OS runs on that thing, it is immediately a competitor to the SP. And something that we've talked about on the show in the past, and something I still feel very strongly, is even though the SP has the like first mover advantage technically, and a lot of people really like it, I really like mine. I'm really excited about it. When I think of Miyoo, specifically the Mini and the Mini Plus, those are consoles that have really long shelf life. They stick around for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we just opened the show. I still recommend it to most people if they're trying to get into this scene. Like the Miyoo Mini Plus is, I think, one of the best devices you can own right now. And I could see that same kind of life cycle happening with the Miyoo Flip long term, as long as the hardware works. As long as the hinge is fine and it doesn't fall apart, et cetera, et cetera. And that leads to the last bit, which is some reviewers already have the Miyoo Flip. And I think it's a little dubious to say that these people are reviewing the Miyoo Flip. I want to put anyone too on blast, but like it's really early. They've had it for like maybe a day or 2 days by the time these reviews are coming out because it's YouTube and they're trying to get it out as early as possible. So you can watch these people unboxing the Miyoo Flip and then immediately reviewing it. It's like, I don't know. I think you need to carry it around with you for a little while. But
yeah.
The 2 reviews that I saw kind of had the same notes, which I thought was interesting, which is, first of all, the sticks, which I'm a little iffy on in the first place. They do feel too low, it seems like, when you're playing games with sticks, which is a little bit of a bummer, but they do have L3 and R3, which is going to be really nice for like hotkeys and also compatibility. And also, the hinge design is notably very different. So the SP, for example, has almost the exact same hinge design as the original Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, like split in half vertically. And the Miyoo Flip has a kind of like wider hinge design, which I don't know anything about hinge design, but just the fact that it's different than the thing that is tried and true makes me a little bit worried about it, because I also experienced the problematic hinges on the Retroid Pocket Flip, which very notably would break a lot pretty early on before they started to revise that hardware a little bit. I was lucky in that mine didn't break, but I remember seeing a lot of reports of that starting to break. So I think the hinge is going to be like probably the thing that is going to start to worry people at launch. But it is smaller, it is thinner. The buttons look nice. They're not as clicky and loud as the SPs. I think it feels to me like another device that people are going to get really excited about. And I think the head-to-head of this and the Anbernic SP is going to be really interesting, which is probably why it's good that Anbernic releases 12 devices a year. So, they could just move on to whatever the next thing is when the Miyoo Flip starts to outsell the SP or something. But I think it's coming soon. I'm thinking that it's going to launch before the year's out. That seems to be where they're going for.
Yeah, they're probably shooting for Chinese New Year now more than they are for like the Christmas season in the West, just because it's like, well, I mean, we're as we record this, we're like, a week and a half away from Christmas.
Yeah,
so
you basically have another week.
But also, I mean, look at what Anbernic just did, right? They announced and then are launching their Game Boy Advance clone, within like 4 days. They announced it. And it comes out on the 16th.
Yeah, they did it in like a week. So it is
reviewers
possible.
have them in hand already. Like it's happening. It's happening real fast. And if Miyoo has really been sitting on this thing for as long as we think they have, it's possible that any day now they could just be like, all right, here it goes.
Yeah. Moving on, I just wanted to mention before we talk about we have some Nintendo Switch 2 rumors that we need to talk about, and Brendon has a new handheld, and also I have some updates. Just one final thing from our news recap that I wanted to mention: we have a full-on leak for the Lenovo Legion Go S.
Yes,
this is the more affordable option of the Legion Go that we mentioned multiple times on the show. We now have full render from all sides. This is pretty much what we expected when we first saw that blurry photo a couple of months ago. It's a Legion Go that sort of does away with all the things that made the Legion Go unique. So it doesn't have it doesn't have detachable controllers. It's more similar to like any other PC handheld you've seen. So the controllers are attached. Doesn't have the touchpad. Instead, it comes with a little nub, with a little mouse nub on the. Does it have it on the right side? I think
it's on the right
side. It's on the right side. Yeah,
on the right side.
It's a very Lenovo thing because obviously Lenovo bought the ThinkPad from IBM years ago, and that's where that nub concept came from.
We still need to see about the CPU and like spec-wise and price-wise. This is most likely going to be a CES announcement. I am intrigued by the ergonomic design of the sides of the Legion Go S. It seems, judging from the photos, that they're taking a page from the Steam Deck, where the controllers are very rounded and the main body of the device, like when you. One of the things that are unique about the Steam Deck and that not so many handhelds replicated was if you place your Steam Deck down on a flat surface like on your desk, there's a pretty wide gap, underneath the main body of the console. That's what allows the Steam Deck to distribute the weight equally so that it's still a huge handheld, but it's so much more comfortable than smaller handhelds that, however, have a different weight distribution. It seems to me as if Lenovo is doing a similar thing with the Legion Go S, so I'm intrigued. We'll see. I think you guys are gonna play with this one in January at CES. I think
so too.
I think there's no world in which I don't buy this. Like, it's just being completely honest. I think this thing is like, as soon as it's announced, I'm gonna pre-order it. I liked my time with the Legion Go, and I remember in that episode, in that conversation about it, just saying, or at least thinking, if they release a version of this that doesn't have detachable controllers and is smaller, I will buy it. And that's
this is where I was gonna go, because I've been thinking about this and I realized if this is smaller, cheaper, more comfortable to hold, and still comes with 2 USB 4 ports
and a good screen
I mean, the screen seems pretty huge. So if it comes with that, I may think about it, because like, I have my eGPU and now it's not being used because it's Christmas and we put the tree in front of the cabinet where the eGPU cabinet.
Melt your Christmas tree.
The eGPU cabinet is not accessible right now. It cannot be opened because there's a Christmas tree in front of it. So I am not using my eGPU at the moment. But we'll see. It's a pretty good. It could be a pretty good compromise between if you don't want to use an external graphics card, you're just gonna use the Legion Go S. You're gonna get better performance than a Steam Deck. It's gonna run Windows, and it's lighter, cheaper, and comfortable. But if you want, you can connect an eGPU. And I should say, I come prepared for this future because, guys, I upgraded my King cable. Okay.
Oh my God.
It's the Emperor cable now.
Yeah.
I now
God King cable.
I now have a 12-meter King cable. Okay.
Oh, you did it.
12 meters. Oh my gosh.
2 more meters. Because the 10-meter was like reaching my bed, but I needed to like sit on the side a little, because like it was just barely enough getting to the bedroom. So I realized, let me just get the 12-meter version. And so it took like it took 2 months for this version to arrive, but I got it. So anyway.
I'm excited for you to start like talking to your city officials and seeing if you can get King cables kind of like stretched along telephone poles and stuff, so you can just kind of access your GPU no matter where you are. Yeah, we'll get there.
My concern is that all of this is gonna change in January, and that's because I bet we are going to see the arrival of a lot of Thunderbolt 5 peripherals.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too.
So my issue is that I can enjoy USB 4 until it lasts because I think it's going to be Thunderbolt 5 all the way.
Yeah, Thunderbolt 5 is going to be fantastic for handheld gaming, I think, eventually. It's just going to take a while for it to really trickle out to a lot of devices. I think also worth mentioning about this Legion Go S, Federico, is the D-pad is different on this model too. It's like a circular D-pad, which I'm a fan of circular D-pads. I kind of like them.
It's like the Cube here. It's got a circular D-pad. Yeah.
How do you like that, Federico?
Oh, the D-pad on the Cube? Man,
Yeah.
I love the Cube, and I like this D-pad. It's historically, I haven't liked this sort of style, but I think they did a pretty good job balancing, it doesn't move around too much. That was always my issue with these circular D-pads. Like you press on one side and it's like the D-pad is going, like it's running off to that
like
direction.
the whole thing is moving.
It's the whole, so it does move, but not so much. And it's not too clicky, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
The Cube is, we're going to talk about our favorite handhelds of the year, but the Cube is one of my contenders.
Great.
The Switch 2. So before we share our topics, the Switch 2 does not exist. The Switch 2 only exists in our minds and in leaks that we find on Reddit and on Twitter. And the latest is a silicon case from a third-party manufacturer that seems to line up with a couple of facts. Fact number 1, the Switch 2 will most likely look like a Switch 1. And fact number 2, it's in line with some blurry shots of the redesigned Joy-Cons that we saw a few weeks ago, where there was a new button to magnetically detach the Joy-Con from the Nintendo Switch and a slightly more rounded design for the shoulder buttons. You can click the link in the show notes to see this leak. And it shows, as we expected, it's a Nintendo Switch with 2 USB ports, slightly thicker, and a bigger display. And this sort of prompted me to come up with this question that I wanted to ask you both. Is this it? Like, how do we feel about the idea that potentially this could be it in terms of we are expecting, like, historically we expect Nintendo to always come up with like a new gimmick or like a new something, and like with the Switch it was obviously the whole thing. But what if the Switch 2 is an iteration on the original Nintendo Switch? It's more powerful, it comes with upscaling, it's got a bigger display, the Joy-Cons don't have drift anymore, they're now magnetic, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot ever since you posed this question, and the gadget nerd in me wants something different. I want a new gimmick. I want a new form factor in some way. But on the other hand, when you look at it from a practical standpoint, the Switch isn't unlike a mobile phone in that once you get to that perfect rectangle, there's very little new stuff you can do for it. But what you could do is you could change the Joy-Con. And I think the Joy-Con really do need to be upgraded.
Well,
I don't think the Joy-Con on the Switch are very good. I mean, they're not. It's not just the drift thing. They're not comfortable to use handheld. I think that's something that I was really hoping we'd see, something that is detachable. You know, it has all the things that make the Joy-Con great, but also is a little more comfortable to hold. And that doesn't seem, at least from these leaks, like what we're going to get.
you can change the Joy-Con and you can change the dock, which is
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
How do you
Yeah,
feel about this, Brendon?
I think we're missing something.
I
It
agree.
is my big feeling about it. I think there's, I totally agree with you, John. I think there's not a lot that they can do with the design realistically, and I think in a lot of ways it's probably smart for them to not change too much about the design this time around, especially if they want it to be backwards compatible, which I think they're just following kind of consumer sentiment there. But that doesn't mean that the software can't be completely bonkers.
True.
My hope, and when I look at the Switch and I say, what is, I think, the weakest part of this as a console, I think it's the software experience. I think that it is the least Nintendo their software has been since they started developing like real operating systems and real BIOS outside of just like the logo that pops up when you turn the Game Boy Advance on. And I feel like that is the area in which they can probably improve the most. And on top of that, we have actually seen a lot of job postings that Nintendo has put up over the past like 3 years-ish, which have been specifically software and UI designers that they've been onboarding, which all points to, I think, the software experience being maybe the biggest differentiator here. Outside of that, I think weirdly, it's the most Nintendo thing to do to, for the first time ever, not completely go wild with the next iteration and like just do something safe. When I think about Nintendo, I think they are completely unexpected. You can never really nail them down. And I think following their track record of always coming up with something new and completely insane, I think having something that is pretty safe is actually the most wild thing they could possibly do in this case.
Maybe it's a little bit like the transition from the DS to the 3DS, right? Where if you look at it, if you squint a little bit, the hardware wasn't that different, but the software experience was definitely different between those two.
Yeah, right. And if you saw a leak of the 3DS before it had come out, you would think that it's
that's
just,
what I mean.
Yeah, you would think it's just the Nintendo DS, but with a slightly bigger top screen.
That's a good point.
Right.
And I think there's something pretty obvious that we're missing about the Switch 2, is my feeling.
Mm-hmm. That's a good angle. Like if you saw the 3DS before you knew anything about the 3DS, you just thought, they're making another DS. And obviously it was very different from it. I don't know. I'm always hoping for a weird Nintendo thing, but at the same time, I also think that Nintendo, they are in an interesting position now, because it feels like, at least for the foreseeable future, they will never be able to not make a Switch again. Like, they painted themselves in this corner where people just want a Nintendo Switch. They want a console that is both a home console and a portable console. Yeah. They unified their development teams and their platform. And so, like, they have to keep making a Switch, and it probably needs to continue looking like a Switch, right? I don't think Nintendo has the bandwidth or the willingness to say, we're making a Switch too, but also we're making a new Nintendo GameCube that is just a home console, just for people who want to play in 4K at home. I don't think Nintendo will do that. I don't think Nintendo will split their lineups between the home and portable again. I think it's going to be the Switch possibly for the next decade, and I'm fascinated by this idea that this is like what they're gonna do, right? All these other companies are, there's Valve, for example, most likely, making a Steam machine and a Steam Deck. Sony's making a PlayStation Portable again. Xbox, they want to make a handheld, and Nintendo is like, no, we're just gonna make a Switch, and that's the one thing we offer. And it's slightly better than before, but this is it.
One thing that I'm surprised Nintendo didn't do this time around that I could see them leaning into with the Switch 2 specifically. I was expecting Nintendo Switch Lite, portable only, some kind of Nintendo Switch that was just a console, like just a television console.
Right.
And I could see them going that route this time around. And that's based on nothing but vibes, if I'm being completely honest. I just have a strong feeling that once again, a big Nintendo swerve would be to release a like television only version of this thing, especially if it has the kinds of power that we're talking about. And I forget, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to remember the YouTuber or find them, but a YouTube video was served to me recently of a modder who went and actually built a home console version of the Nintendo Switch with like better cooling and slightly better overclocking and all this stuff.
Right.
That just like made games perform a little bit better. And his feeling at the end of the video is pretty much like, this was remarkably easy for me as a person by myself, just figuring out how to do this. It's strange that Nintendo didn't do this themselves with the amount of teams that they had. And I could see that being a thing that they lean into next time around.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because, you take that screen away, you obviously have a lot of cost savings there, and they could do something very interesting that's similar to what they're doing with the Lite, where they're able to offer it for at a lower price point and bring in a wider audience that way.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously a home Switch, like it wouldn't switch anymore. So
no, that's true.
What would you call it? What would you call it?
But the Switch Lite doesn't switch either, Federico. I mean,
yeah, I guess you're right. Otherwise, you could call it the Nintendo Switch versus
the Switch Heavy,
the Switch, the Nintendo Stay, because you stay there. I don't know. I mean, they have called their consoles worse things in the past.
Yeah.
So,
hire Federico for your marketing team.
A company
Nintendo.
that had the 3DS and then the 2DS. I mean, seriously?
I know. And the 2DS XL and or the 3DS XL.
Anyway, we'll see. But Christmas is coming. Nintendo is obviously not announcing the Switch this year, so we'll see.
No.
We'll see. Brendon, you made me spend money again this week.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so I picked up. I ordered it a while ago, and it took a long time to show up.
It's been a bit of a journey. Yeah,
it was on a bit of a journey. It flew all the way to the United States, made its way to New York, then left New York for a while, and then kind of like wandered around my home state of New Jersey, and then wandered back to New York. But I received the TrimUI Brick, the new mini, maybe even micro vertical handheld from TrimUI. Best known for the TrimUI Smart and Smart Pro, two devices that people really love these days, although they didn't love them when they launched, which I think is a worthwhile note here. Going back to my feelings about all of these manufacturers and their operating systems, both the TrimUI Smart and Smart Pro launched with OS experiences that people didn't really love until some people made custom firmware that kind of like saved the devices, quote unquote.
Right.
The TrimUI Brick is a handheld that is almost exactly the same size as the Miyoo Mini Plus. I'll hold them both up for those of you watching on video so you can see with a beautiful reflection of the sky in the background.
That looks nice.
But if I line them up, they're like almost exactly the same size.
Yeah,
the TrimUI Brick is a little bit thinner, but a little bit taller than the Miyoo Mini Plus. But the biggest difference, and the thing that I'll probably talk about the most, is the way the back of the device is designed. So the Miyoo Mini Plus has these kind of like angled, sloped shoulder buttons that I think exist purely to make it easier to slide into your pocket. Whereas the TrimUI Brick has this aluminum backplate. So it's made of metal. It's heavy, hence the name. But has these like kind of like big clicky shoulder buttons that kind of jut out from the device. And I'll just say right off the bat, as somebody who loved the Miyoo Mini Plus, and again was the device that I recommended to most people right out of the gate. I love the TrimUI Brick. The feeling of it, everything about it is so interesting. It has an amazing, super bright screen. The buttons feel great. The operating system out of the box, once again, I didn't love, but I replaced it with MinUI, which removes a lot of features. It removes Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and like the ability to play a bunch of different consoles. But when you have MinUI on this device, it just feels like a mini version of the Analog Pocket. And that is like kind of the dream for me with a vertical device. As someone who doesn't even really love vertical devices that much, I feel like the SP and the Miyoo Mini Plus are kind of outliers in that sense for me. I generally trend towards horizontal if I can. It's why the Anbernic 28XX was like one of my favorite devices of the year, despite being one that a lot of people don't really love that much, because I'm just playing Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance on it, and usually Game Boy Advance games that don't even need the shoulder buttons. That thing being able to slip into and out of my pocket just made it kind of like a constant companion for a while. But there's something about the TrimUI Brick that is like exhilarating to use, especially with MinUI. And Russ over at Retro Gamecore posted a video about this, specifically about MinUI on the TrimUI Brick. And I agree wholeheartedly that it feels like MinUI was made for this thing. The ease of like, I hold the power button, it launches me back into whatever game I was playing. I hold the power button while I'm playing, it quick saves and closes again. The ability to map the like screen resolution to these two front glowing face buttons is really nice.
Nice.
It has like a volume switch on the side, right? I don't know if it's going to show up because it's a little dark, but there's like a switch on the side of it that you can use to just turn the volume on or off if you don't want to like, mess around with the buttons. It's an amazing device. It is something I picked up purely because I knew we were going to talk about like our handhelds of the year, and it just seemed like the kind of thing that I would want to test, to see where it fit in. I didn't expect it to become the thing that I bring with me every day, which is, I literally the last episode of this show, I talked about the SP and how I've been getting back into it and loving it and using it every day. But like immediately this thing just kind of usurped it. Like it is now the thing that is in my pocket at all times.
So this is pocketable for you. It's pocketable.
Yeah, more pocketable than the SP even.
Okay,
like,
interesting.
Yeah, it's thinner, isn't it? I mean, it's not as deep.
It's interesting because like on one hand, it is almost the exact same. Actually, no, it is a lot thinner than the SP.
Yeah.
Folded up, the SP, I think in terms of like height is obviously smaller.
Yeah. Right.
But the side of it,
it's chunky.
It's a chunky guy. Yeah. This thing just fits in even honestly, like I don't wear my like tighter jeans that often. I'm usually wearing like kind of bigger, flowier pants, but even if I'm wearing my jeans, this fits in like with no problem.
Interesting.
Well, that's good.
It has become, I think, one of my favorite devices of the year, if not my favorite. I'm going to need to think about it a lot before we do handheld of the year, but I love this thing. It's also worth mentioning, I got it in black. It comes in white, and as of, I think, this week, the week this episode comes out, also in red and purple, which is cool.
I got one in white. I'm waiting for.
You got one in white,
yeah. Obviously.
I did get I showed this to one of my coworkers. Shout out CJ if you're watching this. I showed this to one of my coworkers, and he texted me literally at 1:30 in the morning last night with a screenshot of him ordering one as well in white.
So this is $60.
Yes,
more or less. We never talked about TrimUI before.
No, we haven't. It's never come up.
No, I don't think we have.
Is this their like? My understanding is that it seems like this is their hit device right now.
I think the TrimUI Smart Pro.
The Smart Pro I've seen mentioned before.
Yeah, it's basically like their PSP, I would say. The big problem being that it is a little bit underpowered to run PSP as well as you would need it to. I think if they release some kind of like TrimUI Smart Pro Plus or whatever they decide to call it, and anything with that form factor with those buttons that is a little more powerful and can become can become a PSP basically is going to be a really big deal. And honestly, we haven't really talked about this that much, but I feel like that's kind of the next frontier for devices in general. Like when I'm thinking about what's going to happen in 2025, my feeling is that we're going to start to get into the realm where PSP is no longer the top tier of what the budget side of Linux devices are capable of.
Right.
But I think like as we're going out with things like Anbernic's GBA and the TrimUI Smart or the TrimUI Brick, I think we're getting to a place where it's like these devices are almost perfected to me, and the next frontier is right around the corner.
That makes sense to me. Yeah,
Um,
there's something about the design of the brick that to me is just very elegant. I mean, it's got really nice, clean lines. It really does remind me a lot of the Pocket in that way.
Yeah,
especially with some of the color accents with the black one. I actually ordered a white one, Brendon.
Nice.
I finally gave in last night. Yeah, after reading your story and seeing some stuff online.
Can I be honest though? One thing about this is that I remember when they announced it, I saw a lot of people praising it for its design and the elegance of the design. And I'm a person who, I'm a designer first before everything else. I was a graphic designer as a career before I got into anything else that I do. I feel very strongly about design. There are some things about this that in the photos really turned me off from it, like visually, like the TrimUI logo in the middle of the D-pad. Some of the ways in which they like have snuck the TrimUI logo. I don't even know if it's going to show up on camera, but like they snuck it into the kind of ridges of the back and stuff.
Oh, really?
And even the way the RGB looks all felt to me like a little, like they almost got there. And if they just removed a couple more elements, like so much of good design is about removing superfluous stuff.
Right.
And I gotta say, when you look at it in real life, it is a completely different feeling. Like I have never in my life with one of these devices had such a huge 180 from looking at the photos to then holding one in my hand, where now every time I look at it, I'm like, this is one of the most beautiful handhelds I've ever used. But when I saw the photos, I was like, nah, that thing is not for me. But I was kind of trying it out of obligation. So, I mean, rave reviews for this thing, honestly.
Nice.
I think you both are going to be really surprised by it.
think
Specifically the screen. When you're looking at this, even next to the SP or the Miyoo Mini, like the screen is unreal. It's so beautiful.
I can't wait. Just
Interesting.
a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, hit me.
What platforms does MIUI support?
Yeah, out of the box.
GBA, Super Nintendo, Game Boy.
Yeah, I can turn it on. So I'm holding the power button. We'll just see how long it takes to boot up. So here's the TrimUI logo. For those of you not watching, I'll narrate everything.
That looks very
TrimUI
nice.
logo. The lights are turning on to show that's turning on, and we're gonna. Okay, here we go.
There you are.
There you go.
So Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, NES, Sega Genesis, PlayStation, and Super Nintendo. Yeah.
Interesting. PlayStation.
Yeah. I've been trying and failing for like a week and a half to get Nintendo DS running on this thing, so it can fully replace my SP.
I can play Final Fantasy.
Interesting.
I can play Final Fantasy Tactics on that thing.
Yeah, man.
Oh, okay.
It is not difficult to get some other platforms running on MIUI. It's worth mentioning.
In fact,
yeah.
Second question:
Yeah.
Can you run Portmaster on it?
So Portmaster works on the TrimUI software out of the box. And it's actually one of the problematic things about the brick is that it comes with like Celeste and Balatro preloaded on there.
Oh, no.
Not great.
Oh,
No.
Don't love that.
yeah.
One of the reasons I was like more than happy to just kind of wipe it entirely and just throw MIUI on here. But I know that there is there's a great custom firmware called CrossMix that people love on the TrimUI Smart and Smart Pro. That basically is just like a much nicer version of the TrimUI stock operating system that will have things like Portmaster, and they are working on getting it running on the brick. I think it's more just like a screen ratio difference that they're sorting out right now, because it's all the same internals as both of those other devices. But yeah.
Got it. Well, we're waiting for ours.
excited.
John, me too. Me too.
I'm excited. Honestly, when you guys both get them and we come back and we do the show again, we should. I want to hear your experiences with it, because I don't think that my experience is solitary. I don't think I'm the only one who feels this way about it, but I'd be curious to get both of your takes on it, especially knowing like. John, I know you in particular are more partial to vertical handhelds generally, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your take, and Federico, I know you're madly in love with the RG Cube again, so I want to hear your take about it too.
Yes,
See if anything pulls you away from that thing.
We'll do. Hopefully, it gets here soon. There was the expedited shipping option on AliExpress Italy, so we'll see. I have a couple of updates to share, but before we do that, I believe we have a sponsor to thank for this episode.
We do have a sponsor. I'm so excited to say that this week's episode of NPC is brought to you by Pika, by Good Enough. Pika is the blogging platform that makes you want to write. It makes blogging simple. You can go from signing up to posting some stuff in less than 5 minutes. I will say personally, I use Pika literally every single day. It's where wavelengths.online is hosted. I tried a lot of different blogging platforms over the years and landed on
I
Pika.
remember that.
Yeah, it looks exactly the way I always envisioned wavelengths would look right out of the box, which I think is really exciting. You know, just a couple tweaks to some color and uploading my logo and stuff, and like it just looks great. I'm happy with it. They continue to add new features, which I'm all about. There's like a guest book where people can show up and just write or draw whatever they want, and you can choose like, do I want that in my guest book? Yes or no. It's a wonderful, wonderful service. You can use it for free at first. I think you can post 50 posts on your blog for free, and you know, if you want to just keep using it for free, just like delete the oldest one and get the newest one in there. But it's also $6 a month or $60 a year. That allows you to get unlimited posts, unlimited pages, guestbook entries. You can add a custom domain, get your analytics in there, et cetera, et cetera. And for those of you who are interested, you can use code NPC20 to get 20% off your first year by going to pika.page/NPC. That's pika.page/NPC. Thank you so much to Pika for supporting the show. Thank you for making a blogging platform I like a lot. Shout out Pika.
Yeah.
Shout out Good Enough.
Pika. Thank you.
Thank you, Pika.
I have a couple of updates to share. Both are very new things. One arrived yesterday and the other today. It's very fresh, but I wanted to share some first impressions on the show because I think we're going to follow up on these. And I think as you guys, especially maybe John, will particularly hate me in a good way for one of them. The first is ND.
He's going to make me spend so much money. I can see it coming a mile away.
Me? When? Never. The first one.
Federico bought a yacht. It's time.
No.
We're on a boat, baby. Let's go.
And NPC at sea.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, boy.
That's good. I don't think we ever mentioned this on the show. NDI streaming. So NDI is a protocol that is typically used by serious people. Well, by serious people, I mean
people making TV shows and things like that.
People making TV shows, people who work in the TV and movie industry. They are physical devices. They are hardware devices. They look like this thing, like a little box, a little puck that serve to encode and decode a video feed over a network. Over the past couple of years, these devices have been repurposed as a way to stream your gaming PC or your video game console on a network with better quality and less latency than a standard remote play or whatever is called on Xbox or Moonlight and those sort of things. You're getting much better picture quality because there's little to no compression, and you're getting you can easily stream 4K to an iPad or to another Mac or to an iPhone, and there are a bunch of NDI clients that you can get on the App Store. For the past year at this point, I've been using the KiloView N40. This is this little thing here. As you can see, it's got HDMI in and HDMI out in the back. I've been using this with my PS5 to stream games to the Vision Pro. Now, the Vision Pro has a bunch of issues when it comes to Wi-Fi performance. I believe we had an article on MacStories where we talk about all the different solutions for the Vision Pro. But lately, I wanted to try. I want to finish during my Christmas break. I want to finish Astrobot and I want to finish Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because I said I would do it and I want to do it. So I want to play with my PS5 again. And I don't want to be in my office by myself at night playing at my desk. I want to stream those games. And I want to have better picture quality than remote play. So the N40 was doing fine, but it bummed me out so much that the colors were so washed out, both on the Vision Pro and on the iPad Pro, because the N40 does not support HDR. It can do 4K, but all the colors look so dull and so just washed out when you stream to an iPad Pro. So I treated myself to the upgraded version, which is the KiloView N60. Now, this is it's here, so I cannot show it on video. It's chunkier. It's got a fan. It's not powered by USB-C like the M40. It's powered by a DC cable. It's got a display. It's got a wheel in front that you can navigate to the display to show you your network status and everything. But thanks to firmware released by KiloView last year, you can now do 4K 60 HDR streaming with the PlayStation 5. And I am going to take this opportunity to share with you guys as we are recording this so you can see what I'm talking about. I am going to send you screenshots of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth streamed in 4K on my iPad Pro with HDR enabled. As you can see, it's pretty incredible. And you get wildly superior picture quality than remote play, no latency, and the only thing to keep in mind is that did you get the image?
Yeah, I'm looking at them. I'm zoomed in all the way.
Yeah,
I'm pixel peeping.
The thing to keep in mind with NDI streaming is that so a couple of things actually. I'm using an app both on the Vision Pro and on the iPad Pro. I'm using an app called Vixio. That's VXIO. Vixio is an NDI streaming client for the Vision Pro and iPad Pro. On the Vision Pro, there are issues with HDR streaming in Vision OS 2.2. So that seems to be a bug on Apple's part, but HDR streaming is perfect on the M4 iPad Pro. That's what I've been using to stream these games. And the second thing to keep in mind, when you are streaming via NDI over PlayStation Remote Play, you are using the controller connected to your console. The NDI client is just a viewer. It's just a screen, basically.
Right.
The controller is not connected to your iPad Pro. The controller is connected to the console. So you need to be within range of a console for the controller to still work. My PlayStation 5 is in the office. It's less than 10 meters away. So the DualSense has absolutely no problem establishing a connection to my PS5.
That's good.
And so I can just put the iPad on my lap and just stream in 4K HDR on my iPad Pro. I'm gonna.
I was gonna say, do you have any sense for the data rates that this thing is throwing off? Because one of the things I know with the Vision Pro is that trying to do NDI on the Vision Pro is hard because it's got small antennas and it's only Wi-Fi 5. And is this sending you a lot more data?
I
than
think so,
the
because
old version?
I mean, when you're sending 4K 60 HDR, you're sending a lot of data over the network.
Yeah.
So I recommend obviously the NDI encoder itself. It has to be plugged into Ethernet. So I would recommend plugging your PlayStation 5, your NDI device into Ethernet. And my iPad is on Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi 6E is fine. It would be better if I had an Ethernet port nearby that I could also connect to my iPad Pro via USB-C. But this will do for now. And
there needs to be the King cable version of the Ethernet. I mean, Ethernet King.
Something like that. The other thing that I wanted to quickly mention, because I literally just played with it for like 2 minutes, I got the XREAL One. So these are the new glasses by XREAL.
Yeah.
XREAL are doing two things. They're doing the One, and at some point in the spring of 2025, the One Pro, which are going to be even better. But the One, here's the gist of it. They do more things than before, in that more computing has been moved into the glasses themselves. They now come with this X1 chip made by XREAL. That means you don't need a separate Beam or Beam Pro device, like a little accessory, to do spatial positioning, 3D depths of field, like that sort of stuff. It's all built into the glasses. So you can choose to have a fixed display. You can choose to have a virtual display that follows you around as you move your head. It's all built into the glasses. They come with Bose speakers built into the frames. They sound really nice. They have 120 hertz refresh rate. They're still 1080p, still Sony micro OLED displays inside. They have 150 degree like viewing angle, and they have a completely redesigned menu system that is so much easier to use than before. You have this action button below and a shortcut button above the glasses, plus of course the plus and minus buttons to adjust the volume and navigate the menu. You can access the menu where you can do a couple of interesting things. You can choose the virtual monitor size, the distance from you. So all of these can now be done just with the glasses without having to use a separate dongle or like the little beam puck that they used to make. It's all
that beam thing that they used to make would get really hot, though. Does that make the glasses hot?
Not in my experience. Okay. And this all thanks to this X1 chip that they have specifically built for
Got it.
glasses. I connected it to my Steam Deck. I played some Dragon Quest XI. I noticed that a couple of things. There's a Decky plugin for the Steam Deck called XR Gaming. It hasn't been updated for the XREAL One yet. Justified because they came out.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. Yeah. And the Satechi, I have a Satechi dongle that allows you to do like both charging and glasses at the same time. It doesn't work with the XREAL, but with the XREAL One. But I probably need to update the firmware of the glasses, which I haven't done yet. So I'll follow up on this.
Sure.
But to sum up very quickly, they are incredibly comfortable. XREAL, I've tried a bunch of glasses. I've tried the Rokid last year. I've tried the Viture One. XREAL, they make the only comfortable glasses that I can try. I am waiting for prescription lenses that I will get on Tuesday. So I'm struggling a little bit with my eyesight right now because everything is a little blurry, but I find them very comfortable. I am very excited to be using this with my Steam Deck or with my iPad Pro, and I'll follow up, in terms of prescription, software updates, and then of course we'll see at CES what XREAL will announce. But for now, I think these have a real pretty easy opportunity to replace my original XREAL Air from a year and a half ago.
Nice. If I can make a recommendation, you should plug them into your Odin as well. That's what I did with the Legion glasses.
Okay, and, I'll try that.
Had a blast with that, and I imagine on the XREAL ones, it's going to be
nice,
spectacular. Yeah, this is a whole product category that I kind of wrote off until I tried them for myself, and now I completely understand the appeal, and I'm constantly trying to not get them. So the more you, eventually it'll all balance out. I make you buy the TrimUI Brick for $60. You make me buy the XREAL One glasses for $500.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I having tried the XREAL Airs myself, I have been holding out to see kind of what the next gen of this stuff looks like because they were just inconvenient enough that I didn't use them a lot. But this sounds like it's a pretty big step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, and I think we did it. I think that's another show. That's another episode of NPC.
Oh wow!
I think it is.
Can you believe it?
It is.
Next time we will be doing the hotties, which are the handheld of the year. Right? We're gonna do the handhelds of the year. So the hotties next time.
God, I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of thinking to do.
Me too.
I do too. Yeah, well, we'll start doing our homework right away, and hopefully the TrimUI Brick will come for at least Federico before we record that episode.
So.
I'm not so sure I'll be able to get it in time, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope you get it in hand. Between this and figuring out game of the year, got a lot of Odies to ponder. I'm pondering my Odies.
Sure.
Yeah,
for the next couple of days. All right. Well.
All right, everybody. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net and Brendon at wavelengths.online. We are all on the social media as well. We are on Mastodon, Threads, and Blue Sky. Look for Brendon at Brendon Bigley, Federico at Fetici, and me at John Voorhees. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening and watching.